Coming up today, the United States says it wants the THAAD missile defense system deployed to South Korea as quickly as possible, citing the growing threats posed by North Korea. Time to rethink those lunch options. A new anti-corruption law that puts strict new price limits on receiving meals, gifts and wedding cash has taken effect in Korea. We take a closer look at the law that's caused quite the stir. Plus, furious over plans to introduce performance-based pay. Unionised workers of Korea's railway and subway services extend their joint strike into a second day. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 28th of September. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us today. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, the US government has revealed that it wants to deploy the powerful THAAD missile defense system to South Korea ASAP. The two allies had originally announced it would come here sometime in 2017, but Washington says North Korea's growing threats means there's no time to waste. Connie Kim starts us off.
A senior U.S. official says Washington plans to deploy the THAAD missile defense system to South Korea as soon as possible. Speaking at a congressional hearing on Tuesday, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell said it was crucial to upgrade defensive systems given the pace of North Korea's missile tests. Russell said he could not pinpoint the exact timing as Assistant Secretary of State, but stressed the South Korean government will be able to reveal the timetable once it's finalized. Seoul and Washington had planned to deploy THAAD to the south by next year, but some have suggested the deployment be sped up as North Korea seems ready to deploy nuclear weapons at any moment. Given China's deep objections to the deployment, Russell again emphasized that THAAD is purely defensive, aimed at deterring North Korea's threats and protecting South Korea. Beijing has been vocal in its opposition to the THAAD deployment, saying it would destabilize regional security. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
North Korea has reportedly stated that it has successfully completed the process of developing its nuclear weapons program. Now, this claim was made on Tuesday through a press release from the North Korean embassy in Russia. According to the Russian news agency that received it, the North says its September 9th nuclear test was to confidently display its completion of nuclear weapons development. The embassy also claims North Korea can now mass-produce different warheads for various purposes and will continue to take measures to build up its nuclear forces to protect its sovereign dignity. Russia's permanent representative to the international organizations in Vienna, Vladimir Voronkov, cautiously suggested the statement might indicate Pyongyang could stop testing warheads. A cybersecurity expert has warned North Korea could carry out a large-scale cyber attack on South Korea sometime around October 10th, the anniversary of the founding of its Workers' Party. The head of an emergency response team at South Korea-based internet security firm Hauri said North Korea seems to be preparing a ransomware attack, which blocks users from accessing their computers until they pay a fee to unlock it. The expert adds that many victims will end up paying, giving the regime much-needed foreign currency. North Korea has hacked South Korean firms before, and the expert says the regime may be ready to launch the cyber attack upon leader Kim Jong-un's orders. He suggests the South Korean government work with the private sector to shore up and share counter-cyber terrorism measures. A new anti-graft law has taken effect in Korea today. The government hopes the law will stub out corruption in Korean society and open up a new era of zero tolerance to irregularities among public officials. Park Jong-hong with the details.
The new law is the government's most extensive anti-corruption measure yet. Known widely as the Kim-Yong-lan Law, named after a former Supreme Court justice who proposed the regulation, it will affect officials in government as well as those in the education, media, and a wide range of sectors. Under the law, at least 4 million people working in those fields are banned from accepting meals costing more than $27, gifts exceeding $45, and congratulatory or condolence money over $90. When their job calls for having meals with people, they'll be required to go Dutch and decline offering favors in exchange for cash or other benefits. Those who receive money or gifts exceeding 1 million won, or roughly $910 at a time, and 3 million won, or slightly over $2,700 in a year, from anyone related to their work will be charged with violating the law. The government hopes the anti-corruption law will bring more transparency and eradicate corrupt behavior in the country. Advocates of the law say the transparency will improve Korea's competitiveness in the global arena. But critics say implementing the new law may be easier said than done. They claim the law will have an impact on domestic consumption, especially in the entertainment, food, and retail sectors. Park Jung-hong, Arirang News.
Now, over in Ilsan, just north of the capital Seoul, the annual Korea Regional Hope Expo has kicked off, showcasing the growth of each region around the country. President Park Geun-hye attended the opening, where she encouraged the nation to create competency in the fourth industrial revolution through innovation and deregulation. In her speech, President Park also promoted the Korea Sale Festa, which starts on Thursday across the country and is aimed at boosting domestic consumption and attracting visitors from overseas. The expo also features a job fair with 12 government ministries in 17 provinces and cities, showcasing the nation's innovation centers. Over 30,000 job seekers and some 800 companies are expected to take part. Korea's rival parties are blaming each other for the deadlock at the National Assembly that's holding up an audit session for a third straight day. The ruling Saenuri Party is standing its ground, insisting it will only return to normal parliamentary affairs when Assembly Speaker Jung Se-gyun steps down. The party says Jung, who is supposed to be politically neutral, favored the opposition parties over their recent vote on a motion to dismiss President Park Geun-hye's pick for Agriculture Minister. However, some moderate ruling party lawmakers are calling for the need to normalize the audit session, saying the boycott runs counter to their duty as lawmakers. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea has condemned the ruling party for the boycott, accusing it of destroying parliamentary democracy. The floor leader of the minor opposition People's Party, Park Ji-won, said he has met with his counterparts from the Saenuri and Minju parties to try and break the impasse. Today is the second day of a subway and rail strike here in Korea, but passenger services appeared to have run relatively smoothly during the morning commute. But freight train services are taking a hit, and the government has called for an end to the walkout. Lee Min-young reports.
Korea's subway and railway workers are in the second day of a strike against the government's adoption of a performance-based pay system. It's the first subway and railway strike in 22 years. According to an estimate released by the Transport Ministry on Wednesday, nearly 40% of Korail workers are participating in the walkout, while subway companies' labor unions had a high participation rate. Almost half of all workers with Seoul Metro, which operates subway lines 1 through 4, and one-third of the workers with Seoul Metropolitan Rapid Transit, which runs subway lines 5 through 8, have walked off the job. Even with the walkout, subway and rail services ran as usual during rush hour on Wednesday morning, and subway companies have vowed to keep services at normal levels during the morning and evening commute. Off-peak subway services will run at about 80% of normal capacity, and regular train services will only run at 60%, but KTX bullet train services will operate at the usual levels. The Seoul city government had announced Tuesday that it had enough temporary workers to fill the gaps left by striking workers, and the city plans to dispatch hundreds more to subway stations this week. Freight train services took a direct hit from the strike, triggering concerns about a massive logistical disturbance. Freight operations have dropped to 26% of normal levels, and the shipping volume has shrunk to less than half of normal capacity. Korea's finance minister on Wednesday called the ongoing strikes, including a walkout by unionized workers at Hyundai Motor, selfish, and called for them to end, saying the general public will be affected. Korail has dismissed 100 workers who it says led the walkout and announced that it is considering whether to take disciplinary action against other strike participants. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Now, ties between Korea and the United Kingdom stretch back many decades, and one group that's been there most of that time is the British Korean Society in London, which is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. Our Kwon Jang-oh sat down with its executive chairman, who is also a former British ambassador to Korea, to talk about that relationship.
South Korea and the UK have had diplomatic ties for 67 years now. And during that time, the UK has stood by South Korea as a firm ally through war, economic development, and as a global trade partner. Much of that has been seen firsthand by Warwick, a former British ambassador to Seoul, who began his long relationship with Korea as a student at Yonsei University in 1975.
I was a young diplomat in my 20s, and I was interested in learning a hard language. And the foreign ministry at that time saw Korea as a developing economy and an increasingly important place, and decided to train one or two young diplomats in the Korean language, and I was selected. I think I really didn't know where Korea was when I was told I was going to study Korean. But as it's turned out, you know, it's been the sort of main element in my diplomatic career.
Over the next 33 years, he would spend 3 diplomatic stints in Korea, including 4 years as the British ambassador. He saw Korea grow from a post-war nation struggling to find its feet to the economic global power it is today.
In '75, South Korea was still a relatively poor country. It was about $800 per annum per capita income. More than 50% of the population was still working in fishing and farming. In '75, it hadn't even built a car or a large ship. That was all coming over the next very few years. And the Hermit Kingdom label in the '70s was pretty true. South Korea was very much focused on itself. Now I'm glad to say it's much more outwardly focused.
How has British-Korean times changed along with that, with those times as well? I mean, what have been some of the biggest changes?
As I said, South Korea is now much more outward-looking and outward-going. So the two governments and the two countries work together on the international stage. They lobby together. They take practical action together. Ebola outbreaks, we worked closely together. Anti-piracy. So all these areas, really, this didn't happen 30 years ago. But it's, you know, South Korea has become a global player, and we're very pleased to be a partner with South Korea very often.
The kinship between Korea and UK can be seen in the London-based British Korean Society, which is a group formed shortly after the Korean War, and which has celebrated its 60th anniversary this year. Warwick has been its executive chairman since 2009.
It was a place for British people who knew about Korea to meet with each other, and Koreans who had moved to live in the UK were pleased to have British friends who knew about Korea. Korea is not always very well known here. There's still work to be done to make Korea better known, modern Korea. You know, there's still people who think, you know, there was a war, wasn't there, you know, who are not really plugged into modern day Korea. And I'm sure in Korea there are people who think it's always raining in London and then we all wear bowler hats. And so there are always image things to get over. And I think that's best done through, you know, through tourism, through people traveling, through people coming and going and meeting, and building personal relationship.
Morris said the society is looking to grow, and that the British public's interest in Korea is changing the dynamic between the two nations. Arirang, he says, could benefit from that.
There is more interest in Korea now, and undoubtedly, in terms of Korean food in London and the familiarity with films and music and dance, particularly among younger generations. So yeah, I think there'll be curiosity. People will be curious and interested to see how Korea's changing and what Korea's output is these days. So good luck to you.
Yes, thank you again for your time, and we hope you continue to help build bridges between Korea and the UK.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Right, now moving on to some other news then. The president of the World Bank, Jim Yong Kim, has unanimously been reappointed to a second 5-year term. In a statement released on Tuesday, the World Bank said Kim, who is Korean American, was chosen by the bank's executive directors for a term that starts July 2017. Kim ran unopposed as the nomination period to lead up the multilateral development lender closed without any challengers coming forward. Kim has led the World Bank since April 2012. Korea's 3 main mobile carriers have resumed distributing the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 to customers who pre-ordered the device. Around 20 to 30% of the 400,000 Galaxy Note 7s pre-ordered in Korea have yet to be sent out. SK Telecom, LG U+, and KT are also preparing to restart new sales of the phones on and offline in Korea on October 1st. Samsung has extended special offers to pre-order users, including a free fitness wearable, the Smartband Gear Fit 2, through October 15th. Samsung Electronics released the phone on August 19th, but announced a massive global recall on September 2nd after a handful of reports of battery overheating problems. Typhoon Megi has killed 4 people and injured nearly 330 in Taiwan. The powerful storm has left roughly 3 million households without electricity and disrupted water and transportation services in some regions. As you can see, it's very powerful. It's made its way across the central part of the country, starting from Tuesday afternoon. As you can see on the map there, it was travelling east to west. It was also accompanied by extremely strong winds of up to 210 kilometers an hour and torrential rains, which triggered mudslides in some areas. Typhoon Megi, which has now reached southeastern China, has weakened somewhat but still poses a threat to China. The typhoon is the 17th formed in the Pacific this year. And that is where we're going to leave it on this Wednesday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you ever so much for watching. Goodbye.